All right, so we get to go last. First off, I would like to thank the State Board of Accounts because we were just a little bit late in asking for time, well, maybe a lot late. And they worked us in. We said we had a 3-hour presentation. They asked us to try and cut it down to an hour and a half just to make sure that we didn't. I'm joking. It was not an hour and a half. So my name is Jeff Hudson, and I work at the Indiana Public Retirement System. And with me is Derek Benton, also at the Indiana Public Retirement System. We're here today to talk to you about something new that will be available to you going forward as a potential benefit for your employees. And it's called the Annuity Savings Account, or the ASA Only Plan. Now, first off, how many of you are PERF members now? And so you all have a annuity savings account as part of your plan. You also have a defined benefit as part of your plan, a pension. And we'll talk to you about that in a minute. It's also National Retirement Security Week. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a couple questions first. How many of you in the last 6 months have looked at where the money is in your annuity savings account? Okay, see, we got a lot of financial people here, so you get a gold star for that. So I won't ask you to voluntarily tell us what your asset allocation is, but how many of you know somebody who has all or most all their money in the guaranteed fund? Okay, does anybody know what the guaranteed fund is paying right now per year, percent? What, 0.46, is that right? 0.46 a year. So I'm not going to tell you that your money shouldn't be in the guaranteed fund, because depending on where you are in your retirement preparation, that may or may not be the right place for you. But what I would suggest to you is that you log on, you take a look at where your money is. You also go to the Inpers website. That's impers.in.gov, and click on Investing and Investing 101. That'll give you information about the different investment choices you have. How many of you have worked someplace where, other than where you are now, that offered a 401k or a 403b or something like that? And so in those plans, you're responsible for all of your investment direction and picking funds and saying, not only do I get money into those accounts, but now I need to grow that money and make wise decisions on investing. And one of the biggest challenges with plans of that sort, where you are picking your investments, is that a lot of people don't. So again, one of the things that we're encouraging people to do all week this week is to take this week to log onto your account and take a look at where your money is invested. If you haven't logged onto your account before, give us a ring, we'll help you do it. So that is just something we're strongly encouraging, is just take a little bit of time. If you can do one thing for your retirement, do one thing, and that is look and see where your money is invested in your annuity savings account. All right, so let's talk about the new ASA Only plan. The question, as you see on the screen, is can you reduce contributions and still provide a good retirement benefit? And the answer is something that sometimes I hear when I'm asking opinions from attorneys, and that is, well, it depends, maybe, or it's complicated. And those are all true in this case, but you have some options coming up for you. First thing I want to do before I describe what your new option or your new choices may be is to give you a little bit of an idea of defined benefit versus defined contribution pension plans, and just an overview of how they work. What you're going to see here is, first off, the word defined benefit. Now, this is jargon. I understand it's jargon, but we have to start with jargon so we can kind of explain what we're talking about. There's defined benefit and there's defined contribution. So the defined benefit is just that. It gives you a definition of what is the benefit you will get when you retire. That is the PERF pension plan. It says, how much will I get when I retire? And in this case, there's a formula for it that says that it's 1.1% by your average high 5-year salary times your years of service, and that says how much money are you going to get from that pension plan. Now, those of you who are very familiar with your hybrid plan also know that you have an annuity savings account, and then that would factor in depending on what you want to do with that money. But that is a benefit then for you or for your employees is guaranteed for life. For instance, my father is a retiree in a PERF pension. He's 88 years old and he still gets that PERF pension. So that is something that money will not run out for him. It will be there as long as he lives. So you get the, let's go back up just a little. Thank you, sir. Guaranteed for life. And how do we do that? Well, many of you know that you submit money, you send money to Inpers. And it's a contribution rate, and it's a percentage of payroll. And we get money into the plan two different ways. One is with your contributions, and the other is through investments. And so we have investing professionals who say it's our job to get a steady return over the years to support that retirement benefit and minimize how much employers have to contribute to the plan. So let's talk about defined contribution for a minute. First off, the defined benefit is just that. It says you get a benefit and it's defined. It's defined by a formula. Defined contribution is actually a simpler concept, and for most people today, it's a more familiar concept. Except for people working in government, there aren't a lot of pension plans out there, but there's quite a few people who have 401ks, 403bs, those types of things. And some of us have multiples of those. If you work for multiple employers, you maybe have multiple accounts from different employers with that. But that specifies how much money will go into the account for you. And that money goes in, it's contributions times your investment gains or losses. And that's where it gets really important to say, how is my money invested? I'm responsible for investing it. How is it invested, and is it growing appropriately for me? Is it too risky? Am I putting things in really high-risk things that will give me a big return this year and a big loss next year? Or is it something a little less risky? So that's contributions with your investment return. That's what you get. And so what do you get as a benefit at retirement? More or less until the money runs out. If you say, I'm going to take that money and take it as a lump sum, and I'm going to put it in my bank account and take out a percentage every month, then the money will be there till there's no more money. It is possible you can do some other things like purchase annuities, and we won't go into a lot of that complicated thing. There's ways you can take your defined contribution account and turn it into a monthly benefit for life. But essentially, what you get is the employer says, here's what we're going to put in. What you get out of that is more or less your business. So who manages the investments then? You do. If it's your money, you manage the investments. And then who is at financial risk? And this gets at the heart of what we're talking about also with the new plans that are coming up. If it's a defined benefit plan and we say we're going to pay out X number of dollars to you based on your salary, your years of service, and those sorts of things, then we know that we need X number of dollars into that plan each year. And in the years when the investment performance is better, maybe we need less money from employers. In years when it is not so good, maybe we need more money from employers. So who does that say has that risk then of making sure the pension plan is well funded? It's the employer. And in the case of a public pension system, it's the employer, and where does the employer get the money from the taxpayer? So that's the who's at risk there. Now, who is at risk when you have a defined contribution plan and you say, as an employer, I'm putting the dollars in? Then the individual with that account, let's say it's Jeff and he has a 403b account or whatever, 401k, you put that money in and it's my business how that's invested, and I'm taking the risk. If I don't put enough money of my own in that account, maybe it won't be enough for me to retire. So the risk is then on the employee. So that's defined benefit versus defined contribution. So I think I've kind of pointed some of these things out, but again, if you say the pros and cons, the nice thing is in the defined benefit plan, if you're an employer, you say, you know what, I know that I can provide a guaranteed benefit to my employees when they retire, that they don't have to be an expert in investing the money and be extremely knowledgeable about investing to maximize their retirement. There is no control over how the money is invested. There's typically a longer vesting period. With the PERF plan, how many of you know how long the vesting period is? 10 years. How many of you are vested? That's nice news, isn't it? So vesting means that someday you will get a benefit when you qualify with your age and your years of service and other things. But it's a long period of time. How many of you found those 10 years really short while you were working it, those first 10 years? No. And some of you have been doing this considerably longer than 10 years. So and it's not very portable. If you leave the pension fund, and if you leave particularly before you're vested or even after you're vested, unless you go to work for another public employer, say in the state of Indiana, It's not that this plan is going to go with you and generate more money in that new employer. So that's the employee, and then the employer, the confidence that, again, long-term employees will receive sufficient benefit at retirement. A minimal employee education needed. Let's face it, if you're a PERF member and you haven't done a whole lot with your annuity savings account, but you know that you have a defined benefit payment based on your wages and your years of service, you know that you're going to get a pension when you retire. And so it doesn't mean that you have to engage that much, and if you haven't engaged enough with your annuity savings account, you at least have that backstop with the larger benefit of your pension plan. But you have no control over the contribution rates. We mentioned that a minute ago. You as an employer get a letter, an edict, a notification from the Indiana Public Retirement System that says, here's what your contribution rate is. You don't get to say, well, you know what, it's been a tough year, we don't have that kind of money. Typically, what happens is when the market doesn't do well, that means that there is less money coming into the fund from the market, from investments, to reduce employer contribution rates. But guess what? When the market's not doing well, it's probably that the economy's not doing well. And if the economy's not doing well, it means that there's probably less tax dollars coming into your organizations, which means that very often at the very time when we think that we need to get more money to cover that pension plan is the time when you have less money to do it. Anybody run into that situation since 2008? Maybe. So on the defined contribution side, however, you do, as an employee, you have control over how the money's invested. If you want it, you have control. And we all work with people, and some of you are those people who say, I like to do my own investing. I think I can do a pretty good job with it. It's typically a shorter vesting period. In the case of Inpers funds that are the ASA-only plan, it's 5 years, not 10 years. It's portable. It says maybe I roll it over into a different plan, so if I leave public employment and I go someplace else, I perhaps can roll it someplace else into another account. But there is no guaranteed benefit at retirement. It's only however much money was put in there and however quickly or not quickly it grew during the period of time when you were accumulating money. But as an employer, that gives you more control over the contribution rates. And that is something that those of you who either work in the private sector or have friends or family in the private sector know that when times get difficult, very often employers with their 403Bs and other plans reduce contributions. Significant ongoing education is needed, though, if you as an employee are going to be responsible for making sure that the money in your account grows properly for your retirement. And then you have that hope that there will be enough money for you when you retire. But it says that you have to engage more. You have to say, I'm putting more money into this account on my own, and I'm doing more things to make sure that it's invested properly. So think about the individuals that work in your county governments, the full range of folks, and say, are those folks, all of them, able to make good investment decisions for their savings or for their annuity savings accounts? And how many of them have any extra money to put in? Some do, some don't, but you know the range of individuals that you have working in county government and their abilities to manage their own pension systems. So, as I mentioned, traditional PERF is what's called a hybrid plan. It has that defined benefit part that we talked about. You've got your service credit, your years of service, your average salary, those things to compute into a benefit, a pension benefit for you. And you have that annuity savings account. That's a hybrid approach. That's been around as a hybrid approach in Indiana since at least the 50s. We got a lot of phone calls from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, folks like that in 99 and 2008, 2009, asking us, wow, you're a hybrid plan? That's a new cutting edge thing. And we said, well, you know, Indiana is not always the last to adopt something. In this case, we were one of the first hybrid plans in the nation. So you can feel proud about that. So again, we talked about the defined benefit part. We talked about the annuity savings account part, who funds it, how it happens. In Indiana, and you know this, with the annuity savings accounts that you have, there is a 3% mandatory contribution into that annuity savings account. In some cases, the employee pays all of that, and in some cases, the employer pays all of that, and in some cases, it's split up between the employer in the employee, and so each county may do it differently. So, and again, a variety of self-directed investments, but you'll have to keep that in mind, that 3%, because we're going to come back to that in a minute. So, let's talk about the ASA only plan. Essentially what this is a plan that takes that annuity savings account and says that's going to be the vehicle for somebody's retirement savings. There's not going to be a pension, a defined benefit pension that goes with that, but the contribution rates will be different. It potentially could be more than that 3%, so that somebody accumulates more money for retirement, but they're doing it through the annuity savings account. Very much like a defined contribution pension plan. So what it says is that you as an employer can offer the PERF ASA only plan, which is what we call that, annuity savings account only. You can offer the hybrid plan, which is the ASA or annuity savings account plus the pension plan, or you can offer both. So you're going to get a choice. Now this has been the case with the state of Indiana, new hires with the state of Indiana, for a couple of years now, where a new hire could come in and they could say, do I want to come into the pension plan, or do I want to come into the annuity savings account only plan, ASA only? So PSDs, political subdivisions, we do love our acronyms. So you can just choose the default. Do you want people, if your employees don't choose when they hire in, and much as you would like them to, you know, if you're chasing anybody around to make benefits selections of any sort, whether it's health insurance or anything else, sometimes it takes a bit of work to get people to actually take the time from a new job to make a decision. So if they don't make a decision, they will default, and you can choose, do I want them to default into the PERF hybrid plan or the annuity savings account or ASA only plan. You can also choose whether or not to match employee contributions. So what you'll find with this plan is that there are a range of things that you can do in terms of contributions and what those contributions will be. So if you offer a retirement benefit, it means that you can only offer a PERF retirement benefit. That's one of the new laws. However, if you already were offering a defined contribution plan that was not Inpers, not PERF, then before July 1, then that was grandfathered in. But going forward, it says that if you want to offer a defined contribution plan or a pension plan that's not a PERF or Inpers plan, you can't do that. But you can, however, this does not affect people who are offering a supplemental plan, such as a Hoosier Start or something like that. That would be allowed in addition. So how does it work? You have the fixed contribution, that mandatory 3%, and that is money that is immediately vested. What does that mean? Most of you know, but basically what that means is that 3% that goes in, that's mine on the day it goes in. So there's no vesting schedule there. However, the employer's variable contributions that can be made to the annuity savings account or ASA only plan do have a vesting, so that it does encourage your employees to stay for a period of time, to stay for 5 years, to hopefully keep your good employees and keep them growing and have an incentive to say the money in that account is becoming mine. What that says is that in the first year, it's 20% of the money that goes into that account, that part of the account is mine. And it goes up 20% a year. You get there 5 years and you say, all right, all of that money, now that the employer is contributing to that account, is mine. So one says the members' contributions that either they make or you make for them, that mandatory 3%, just like the annuity savings account that you have with your hybrid plan, that is your money the day it goes in. On the other hand, the contributions that you as an employer may choose to make into that employee's account that you're making that is not the mandatory 3%, that has a vesting schedule, so that it's not 100% my money on the day you put it in my account, unless I've been there 5 or more years. So what it'll also say in this plan is that your employees will have 60 days to choose a plan, or they're going to default into whatever you choose the default to be. They can't change their mind afterwards. There's a lot of things like that, whether it's health benefits or other things, that you say, you know what, once I make a decision, I make a decision. And if I've always preached to people that, at home, and you guys probably do this too, that failure to make a decision is in fact a decision. And that is the case here. If an employee does not make a decision, they will be defaulted into something and then not be able to change that later. They can take that vested portion when they're leaving employment, and then at retirement, whether you're working 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, whatever it is, whatever it's at that account, then it says that's my money to do something with when I retire. I can take it as a lump sum and say, okay, I'm going to go cruise the world for 2 or 3 years and then have no money left for the rest of my retirement and be hungry for the next 20 years. I can roll the money over and say, you know what, I'm not going to spend any of it right now. I'm going to roll it over into another account where I'm allowed to do that. Or I can say, maybe I want to purchase an annuity, purchase something where in exchange for my money, an insurance company is going to say, I'm going to pay you X number of dollars a month for the rest of your life. So let's talk about contributions. You say, how do I know if I want to offer this? And by the way, this is an if I want to offer this. You're not required to offer this, but it's an option available to you if you want. I'm using some actuarial terms here. I could very easily and very quickly get over my head on that, and I'm going to try not to do that. But we basically have what's called the normal cost, and that is the cost that for the defined benefit pension plan is that part that says you have to contribute in any given year or as part of an employee's wages to fund that future pension. So that amount for the, let's not restart the computer, no, thank you. Okay, I'm starting to sweat up here. Is it warm or is it just me? But the normal cost in the hybrid plan, you pay it. That's part of how we compute that rate, that contribution rate for employers. With the ASA only plan, you have a choice of paying anywhere into the employee's account, anything between 0 and what that normal cost is, which for the January 1st to December 31st period coming up in this coming year would be 5.8%. So you get that choice. Do I want to contribute 0? Do I want to contribute 3? Do I want to contribute 2? But you can't contribute, in this case, more than 5.8%. That number will or could change year over year. Then there's that supplemental rate. Now, the supplemental rate is another way of saying the pension system has unfunded liabilities. Now, we're a fairly well-funded system compared to most of the systems in the nation, but we do have, with some of the plans, unfunded liability, which means that in addition to the money that you pay for the contribution rate, you pay some money in there to pay down that unfunded liability, that amount of money that we need to make sure that the pensions are there for people when they retire. So right now, that's 5.4%. So if you have unfunded liability, you would still pay that as an employer, but it does not go into your employee's account. That still goes back to Inpers to pay down that unfunded liability for the pension system so that we're not creating a situation where years from now you really get hit with a big bill. Now, there's the employee mandatory contribution, and keep in mind, that's at 3%. And as I said before, you as an employer say, I can pay 0% of that, I can pay 3% of that, or something in the middle. But one way or the other, that 3% has to go into the annuity savings account. You as an employer don't have to pay it. Then there's additional contributions that an employee may make up to 10%. There is no ER match, but there can be an ER match with the ASA only plan, and that says that you can match either 0 or 50%. That's not between 0 and 50, that's either 0 or 50. So if you look at this, what you can see is that you have some flexibility as an employer to say, you know what, I'm not going to put any money into the normal cost for this plan. I'm not going to pay into the ASA only account for my employees any amount that would equate to a normal cost. Maybe I'm not going to pay any of the 3%, they're going to pay the 3%. And I'm not going to match anything, in which case your only cost would be the 5.4% to cover the unfunded liability. Now, what would that do to your employees? That would say that they have 3% of their money that they're putting in towards retirement. And if they want to put in any additional money, they can, but you wouldn't match it. So that's as least expensive as it could be. Certainly you could say, I'm going to put 5.8% in for my employees. I'm going to, of course, pay Inpers the 5.4%. Can't get out of that. We've got maybe I'm going to pay the 3% then, that's a mandatory 3%, or I'm going to split it with my employees, and maybe I'm going to match 50% of their personal contributions. So those are choices you have. So if you're thinking about, I may want to do this, That's where you'll have to sit down and work on some math and say, you know what, will this make sense for me? So you say, which plan is less expensive? It just depends on, to a large degree, on what you decide you want to do to contribute. And then it says, which one will get the best retirement benefit for my employee? Again, it depends on the money in and then how that money is managed. So let's talk about what you need to do next. And you know, I'm moving awfully quickly here. I know you're counting on being here at least till 4. So I'll see what I can do. So you have to say, do I want to offer, or do I think I'm interested in offering the ASA-only plan? And we'll have some other good news for you in a minute. A lot of this is not going to be hardcore deadlines where you say, I have a window of opportunity and then all is lost. It's not the case. You're going to have some flexibility in terms of when you decide and how long you take to make a decision. You'll have to ask yourself your contribution options, so you'll probably have to do some modeling and ask yourselves what are your contribution options? What might you do? So you'll have to break out some spreadsheets. Maybe some of you work with some benefit consultants, but you'll have to kind of do some modeling and say, what makes sense for me? Because based on that modeling, that's going to say, what is my potential cost? Keeping in mind that some things like the normal cost and the supplemental cost will change year by year. We do our very best to keep those changes not dramatic. We try to invest the money so that you don't have great big swings in the amount of money you have to contribute. At the same time, we can't always predict things like 2008. If we could, maybe we'd have a lot of money. You have to decide what your default option is for your employees. If you decide that you're going to do this, which one do you want to be the default? And then there will be a resolution. It's not posted yet, but we're going to have a model resolution that gets posted onto the website that says, if you decide you want to do this, what should that resolution look like that your organization passes and then submits to us to say, we want to do this? So what are some dates to keep in mind? The first date is January 4th, and that's the earliest you can submit a resolution to us. And the latest is May 31st if you want this to be effective for July 1st for your employees. But going forward, there will be deadlines of May 31st and November 30th each year going forward, so that you say, you know what, maybe I'm not going to make my mind up in 6 months. Maybe I need 12 months. When you're ready, when you make up your mind, when you explore your options, that's when you can do this. All right, so we have taken this presentation in several places in the state. We've got a few questions that I know I've gotten from this group before, but I know that we've gotten in some other places that we presented. And the first question that we've gotten at a lot of places is, what does this do? I'm a member of the hybrid plan. I'm vested. I'm thinking about retiring in 1 year, or 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years. It may go out their ways. What does that do to my retirement? And the answer is, if you're in the PERF hybrid plan, that's remaining the same. Nothing's happening there. But for your new hires, if you decide to give your new hires a choice of where they can go, then that's who that affects. It affects the new hires. Just as with the state of Indiana employees, there's still the active PERF hybrid plan for state of Indiana employees, but when they come in now, they get to choose, do I want the ASA-only plan or do I want the PERF hybrid plan? If a PERF hybrid member moves to a new PERF-covered employer, you may be given a choice. If that other employer offers ASA-only and hybrid, you may be given a choice. So, I have to put this up on the screen. Now, you should have all gotten a PERF at a glance. I don't think anybody in here is probably close to thinking about retirement. I don't see any chance of that, right? But in case you were wanting to know, I'm a PERF hybrid member, when can I retire? I know it's not an ASA-only question, but we get that question a lot, so I thought I might just toss it on the screen in case you know somebody who might be contemplating retirement. Age 65 with 10 or more years of service, that's vested. Age 60 with 15 or more, or that rule of 85, at least 55 plus years of service must equal 85. We got some examples there. That'll be in your handout. And then another question that we get when we talk to this group is, I'm an elected official, when can I retire? And there's some Indiana code there that says that members of PERF or TURF, if you're elected or appointed to an elected position, you become at least 55 years of age, you complete 20 or more years of service to perf or turf. You may choose to begin receiving your retirement benefit while continuing to serve. No additional credible service will accrue once you make that decision. And by the way, if it's an early retirement number, then obviously anytime it's an early retirement, then there's less money. You get less money per month. Did I get that right, Derek?
That's correct.
Good. Derek says I'm right, so I survived that one too. So the other thing is, I've noticed that whenever the last time I spoke to you, you folks applauded when we sat down. Now, I took that to mean that we did a good job, but I'd like you to, and we're going to go on here in a second, go to a different slide, but I would like you to pop out your smartphones or your laptops or something, or this address is in there, and click on this. It's a very brief survey that says, how do we do? And honest to goodness, we're going to be looking at that. I'm going to be looking at that, and you're not going to hurt my feelings, and you know, you probably don't know me if you do, so it's okay. But what it means is that I can look at this and say, you know what? The next time I go out in front of a group of employers and talk about this, can I do a better job? Can I do things differently? So it does matter. And so if you would take a moment to complete that survey, that would be good. So, and of course, there's some contact information there. We recently did an employer survey. Many of you answered it. Our employer satisfaction results are up about 8%, mostly because most people have had a really good experience dealing with our employer group. So that phone number and that contact information is there. I also put the member information there because if you refer your employees to that first number, they'll simply get transferred over to the other number. So you might as well give them the 286 number also. So having said that, I'd be happy to answer questions about the ASA-only plan, and if you have lots of really detailed questions about how the PERF plan works, Derek is going to be the guy to answer those. So is there any questions I can answer for you? We've got one in the back.
So if you hold an elected office, you can retire at the age of 55 or at 20 years of service, is that correct?
I'll let you answer that.
No, actually, it is both. So 55 with 20 years of service, but that would be an early retirement at that with the reduced benefit.
If you've held elected office? Because I thought one of the options was with 15 years of service at the age of 55.
That again would be an early retirement. So the same retirement regulations are still in place for the 60 and 15 years, 65 and 10 years, or the 55 and the rule of 85.
Okay, so that would be early retirement whether you're elected or not.
Correct.
Thank you. I have a question. Well, I guess that's question time, isn't it? So I took the mic. On this, can you go with, like, everybody that we have on PERF right now, can we leave them as they are and then start this new for all new employees? Can we have both, an option of both, I guess?
Right, so what it would say is anybody you have in the plan now, let's say you decide that you're going to offer the ASA-only plan. Those of your employees who are in the hybrid plan will remain there. But new employees coming in, you can give them the choice, do you want to go into the hybrid plan or do you want to go into the ASA-only plan? So if you decide to offer it, it would be a choice, but it would not be moving people out of the hybrid plan typically. Now there is a provision for basically freezing your participation in the defined benefit plan, but that also comes with paying large amounts of unfunded liability up front, which most employers don't want to do.
Does our commissioners or council, do they have a choice of deciding that people have to, new employees have to choose the ASA only?
So it would be how you make your decisions in your county and when you get that resolution. This information is information you can take back to your counties and say, do we want to do this? And if you do want to do it, then the appropriate body passing that resolution and saying we want to do this would then say, okay, we've passed this, we've documented the resolution, we submit it to Inpers.
But they could choose for them not to have the PERF part.
They could choose to say incoming employees, for all new employees, we're going to offer the ASA only plan. But if you freeze participation in that hybrid plan, then there's the issue of unfunded liability that you'd have to address with and work out with Inpers, which frankly can get rather pricey. If anybody here has priced that out, I think you know it gets a little expensive.
Okay, so say we take this back to in our county, it would be the county council then that would, and they are looking at something like this, and have talked about it for several years, about new hires, possibly doing something different. So do you have someone on staff that would come down and be able to explain this to them?
Absolutely. We would
you.
be happy to do that. Simply call the employer number and say that Jeff said somebody would come down, and I'll come down. Derek will come down. But you all know we have people in your regions that we also could have there, so we'd be happy to do it.
Yeah. Would it be like in our region right now, we have Carl Bright? Would it be Carl that could possibly come?
It more than likely would be Carl, and if you know
Okay.
Carl, he does a great job.
Yes,
so,
he does.
Yes, I'd be happy
Okay.
for it to be Carl.
Thank you.
Does that mean that you don't want it to be me? Okay. So do I. I like Carl too.
I have two questions. First, I think it was in 2013, we received a letter that told us that our county's cap would be 10% to put in for the employer. It would increase 1.5% each year till we hit that maximum. When we got our letter for the 2016 rate, it is 10.25%. Will it just continually go up 1.5% every year, or will there ever be a cap for our county?
So I'll follow up with you afterwards, but I think that what we're dealing with here is probably the fact that almost all employers are on the same rate, but there's been a few that as we converted over to having every employer paying the same rate, were enough lower that we said, let's bring you up in stages to the overall, the total contribution rate that everybody's paying. And if that's the case, then I can follow up with how do we do that, and unfortunately I don't have that information today. But I can say that when you got to that point that you were paying the same rate as all other employers, then that rate could fluctuate from year to year, either up or down, depending on what the market does and what the condition of the pension fund is.
Okay. Second question. We've had 2 county elected officials that did the early retirement, chose not to tell the payroll person, and this was last year and one this year, which was me last year, as the payroll person, and we took the money out of their paycheck. When we tried to upload to the perf site, of course, we got the error message that they couldn't make contributions. I was told they were going to get that fixed, and that if another elected official chose to retire, we would be notified well in advance, so we would not take out that money and have to redo a lot of reports, put money back and forth, back into the person's account, redo everything. It happened again this year. I've sent out an email asking all elected officials, if they choose to do this, to please notify me or my payroll person. But has that been fixed, or do you know if they are sending out notifications?
Let me follow up on that first, and if I can get your card or your contact information before we leave. I will say that the other thing that we can and will do is that the outreach team, the Carl Brights and the Jim Nettis and the John Petroskis and the Jennifer Lowrys and some of those people that you've met, we can ask them that when we're counseling elected officials, that we also advise them to let you know. Meantime, let me also see what our system will do so that you don't have a lot of work redo. I know that you probably have some better things to do with your time.